Okay, so Jacob Gentry, director of Broadcast Signal Intrusion. Thank you for talking with me on the Movie Buff.
Of course, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
How's it going?
It's going all right. It's going all right. You know,
Good. Okay.
ups and downs, strikes and gutters.
Okay. Nice. Now, my first question was, did Harry Shum Jr. have to learn how to be a video archivist? I guess is the occupation here.
Yeah. I mean, that was something that I don't think he had a lot of familiarity with the equipment and the sort of analog editing systems that were used. But fortunately, I did, and I was able to kind of talk him through it. But being that he is a brilliant, not only actor but dancer and choreographer, he, as far as like a series of actions and rhythms that he has to perform is definitely something. I mean, it was only a few minutes of just going, well, this does this and this does this, until he had it all figured out. So he's a very quick learner in that way.
Okay, so he became a professional at it pretty quick. Okay.
Yeah, well, he didn't really actually have to edit anything. It just had to look like he was. So, which is a different thing, I guess, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because I was gonna say, like, if he could do that all with the sound design, that's pretty impressive. Just manipulating the videos.
I wouldn't put anything past him. He's a super talented guy. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Now it's obvious that you have a nostalgia for this 90s and all these cool gadgets. What was it like portraying that and just using all the technology?
I don't even really think that it's a nostalgia as much as it is an interest in it from a cinematic standpoint, meaning that when you have someone sort of forensically analyzing a piece of media, like in some of the movies that inspired it, like The Conversation or Blowout, Brian De Palma's Blowout, where they're sort of using magnetic tape and sound to sort of investigate a mystery or uncover conspiracy. I think that the process of doing something like that in an analog format, in the way that we would perhaps do it in the mid-90s or even earlier than that, because by the late 90s you're starting to get into like non-linear video editing, Final Cut Pro, Avid, those sorts of things are becoming even more prevalent on a consumer level. But that's not really it's really difficult to make that cinematic in the way that I wanted to for this. Not saying that there aren't brilliant people who have made that cinematic, but people staring at a computer can borderline on repetitive and boring if you're not careful. And I just think that there's something about the machines and how they work and the switchboards and the jogging pad that has a very sort of cinematic tactile quality to it. And I was just excited about sort of showing that as a means of telling the story.
And as well with like your other filmography with The Signal and Synchronicity, I think is how you say it.
You can call it synchro. That's fine. That's what I call it.
Okay. Yeah, you definitely have like what attracts you to like this technology and just telling these stories through the technology, I guess.
Well, I think that we live in a world that is progressively more and more influenced by technology, and that we probably even take for granted how much technology actually does impact our lives, and how much technology we use. You get up, use the coffee machine, you pop in your headphones, you listen to a podcast like Movie Buff or what have you, and you're constantly sort of surrounded by content and media and sounds and images and all of the time. And I think that trying to find ways to sort of talk about that without it being directly about that, right? Like, so instead of sort of just going like, well, here's what all of our lives are like, and representing that in the movie, it's like, well, here's a story of something that we used to do that we could perhaps sort of make comparisons or something like Synchro, which is like set in the future, in a sort of abstract future that's kind of has a retro futuristic vibe to it. There's almost like a fairy tale quality to that, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I think I'm just fascinated with process. I like watching characters accomplish tasks that I'm unfamiliar with the process, and I can both like I'm fascinated by what the process they use. Like, for example, like what I was talking about with the conversation of Blowout, or if you talk about something like James Caan cracking safes in Thief, right? Michael Mann's Thief. It's like, or what have you, or even like, you know, learning like writing a song on a guitar or something that I'm not that familiar with in terms of actually doing it myself, but just getting to watch the process can be really interesting to see how a character applies their, you know, their sort of pathos to
Okay.
that process, you know.
Okay. And for you with this story, like, I guess just wondering, I guess it's more important to just go through his journey of James's obsession with the videos rather than learning where, like, why he got obsessed with it in the first place. If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I think that hopefully there is like a common relatable experience with that, because I think that most people that I know, and I think a lot of people out there, like, are prone to getting lost into a rabbit, well, you know, what we call a rabbit hole of some sort,
Sure.
whether it be being a fan of movies and you find a filmmaker that you really respond to their work, and then you go deep on their, you know, it ends up being 4 o'clock in the morning. You've watched every single interview with said filmmaker that exists on YouTube, you know, or the
Okay.
Dick Cavett show from the 70s or something. But, or if there's like, you know, something like a podcast like Serial or something, right? Where, you know, I mean, how much engagement was there with just the average listener about like really reading about this and trying to understand, and I think that the unsolved mystery of the story lends itself to a common human experience. And he's just someone takes it perhaps a little further than most people would, and that's hence why there's the movie. But I do think that there hopefully is some emotional reasons that the movie starts to peel back that he are the reasons for why he does go on this obsessive quest.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Also with I got the sense from the score that it's like very, like you mentioned, the conspiracy theory movies, and like, but it's like very like detective-y and like jazz, like there's a lot of jazz to it. Like, what was it like tonally? Like, I know you didn't do the score, but what was it like hearing that for the film?
Well, it was a process of working with Benjamin Lovett, the composer, who I've worked with on pretty much every movie I've made. And I've known him for years, and we just sort of start developing the sound of the movie together by sort of, you know, talking about it. And I sort of like trade music with him and be like, what about this? What about something like this if we kind of go for this? And it was like a lot of the inspiration came from a specific kind of score from paranoia thrillers and conspiracy thrillers of the 70s, particularly the work of people like Michael Small and David Shire, who would somehow counter the darkness, or they would counter the intensity of what was happening on the screen with almost like a more laid back jazzy vibe to things. But it's also like there's some experimental aspects to it too, whether it's like voices or mellotrons or what have you, you know. And so we always like to try to find a sound that's like very specific and hopefully not sort of overused in other movies, you know, something that's unique to the movie itself. And because this was a kind of paranoia thriller inspired by the movies that were sort of at their prime in the 70s, wanted the whole thing to have that kind of feel and sound, right? So it needed to have that sound of like of it being both spooky and eerie, but also like having a kind of I guess what you were saying, like a little bit of that jazz flavor. I mean, if you think about a movie like The Conversation, the whole score is essentially like is straight up just saxophone, like a
Sure.
small jazz ensemble. But we kind of went a little bit further into the more intense stuff, like Parallax View and Marathon Man, All the President's Men.
Okay, I think we definitely get that sense. It's kind of like it's kind of tense, but it's kind of relaxing at the same time.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think there's something sort of uneasy in that relaxingness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some sort of tension that lies right underneath all of that, especially because of the way that Ben was recording the music using sort of antiquated analog, like creating the music and then running it through machines that would kind of degrade the quality of it and give it that feeling of like those sort of mono soundtracks from movies of the 70s that have a, you know, when they go back over and over the tape, much like the movie itself, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
sort of when they go back over the tape, you start to lose certain frequencies in the actual, you know, they talk about that, how they would sometimes, like, you would lose the top high end of the cymbals on certain drum tracks when you would be using the same tape over and over again to record an album.
Okay, that's interesting. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so he did that in post, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Oh, I wanted to ask about like the videos that you create, like the Sal-E Sparx ones. They're not like horror specifically, but they are so unsettling. Well, what was it like for that team to recreate those, like create those videos?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the big inspirations, besides the Max Headroom incident, which is kind of an inspiration for the Sal-E Sparx incident in our movie, we also use this creepypasta from the mid-aughts called it's called I Feel Fantastic is the name of the video, but it's actually kind of frequently known as Terror the Android.
Okay.
And that was something that there is something, it's really unsettling and really disturbing and freaks me out. And I think the banality of it is actually what is the freakiest aspect about it. You know, the sort of the stark, like, plainness of what happens in that video. If you've ever seen it, I don't know, but like it's almost like there's something sort of like we were talking about with the music, like there's something sort of so seemingly relaxing but unsettling because of the sound and because of just like the fact that it's like this mannequin android type thing,
Okay.
just standing in a room. And there's something, you know, I mean, like, great horror movie scenes are not always like the monster like gnashing its teeth and like biting someone's head off. A lot of times it's just like a little girl standing in the corner. I mean, how many times have you seen that in a movie and freaked you out, where it's like there's just like someone just standing there, you know what I mean, slightly
Yeah.
covered in shadow. And that can be as horrific as a more sort of obviously intense thing.
Okay. Those videos like definitely gave me the Ring vibes. I was like,
The Ring has a lot more, yeah, I mean, The Ring is cool. It's got a lot more like sort of surrealistic aspect to it. But yeah, I mean,
sure.
there's definitely some, I'm sure there was some, although that's not a direct inspiration, I'm sure there was some subconscious inspiration from that movie for sure.
Okay. Okay, nice. Because yeah, I watched it in the middle of the night, so I was like, okay, if my phone rings right now, I will not be answering that.
Well, that's how I felt when I first read the script, which was like I was freaked out, but I didn't know why, and I was actually fear for my own safety, even though there's no reason to believe that my safety was in danger. It was just something about the, you know, feeling like there was just something on the outside of this laptop that was
Yeah,
going to come get me. There's a voyeuristic quality to all that stuff too that is very unsettling, you know.
for sure. And just the way the face looks too. It's like, I don't like that.
Well, that's the brilliant Dan Martin, who designed, you know, the not only the masks that we used, but also the animatronics. And without sort of spoiling anything else, it was just about, you know, sort of creating our own version of an event like the Max Headroom incident, and we had a lot of fun with kind of coming up with the fake sitcom in the movie that it's inspired by. So
Okay. Now, what was it like? This might be a loaded question, but what was it like going down the rabbit hole of this research for this film?
it is a little bit of an art imitate life kind of thing for sure. I mean, being that I was already kind of relating to the subject matter with the, the sort of my history with the equipment and analog video and those sorts of things. The research was, well, the research is one of my favorite parts, but I do sometimes tend to get a little obsessive like the main character. So I'm sure that I related to a lot of what Harry's character was going through in the movie. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that. And I think that, I want to kind of know everything about something once something like sparks my imagination, I want to know every single thing I can about it.
Nice. I think I have time for one more, but this isn't really broadcast related, but I remember when I was 14, I saw my Super Psycho Sweet 16 on MTV, and I just remember vaguely loving its ridiculousness. What was it like for you directing that trilogy?
It was interesting. I mean, it was a great film school, because I got to make sort of 3 of these movies within a short amount of time, within just a few years. And I got to and because the movies are kind of like mixtapes, they have like a mixtape quality to them in terms of, or what I wanted to do with them, with the music and with the sort of pop sensibility of it. I wanted it to kind of be like a John Carpenter movie that gets invaded by or a John Hughes movie that gets invaded by a John Carpenter movie, like, and that was kind of the vibe of it. So it had like this kind of mix of different tones and genres and stuff. And with the mixtape quality, I also, formal sort of filmmaking techniques was almost a mixtape of that, and kind of using sequences and sometimes being a little bit referential in terms of what we were satirizing. And because it has a little bit of a dark satire too, that was kind of like a part of the tone of it. The ridiculousness of it is, I think, connected to the fact that it's of what the source material that it's based on. But I think that the movie is almost a reaction to the source material, as opposed to a loving homage to it.
Okay.
It's almost like making fun of the TV show that it's based on, I think.
Yeah, would much rather watch.
I mean, and
those
of
than
course
the
the
TV show.
actors were, what?
Sorry, I was just saying much rather watch your film than the TV show.
Well, the first, when I actually like sort of finally made myself watch that TV show that it's sort of inspired by, I was like, it was more horrific. It was a challenge. It was like, how to make anything this horrific on purpose. I don't think these people are intending to be this horrific, but yeah, I think there's something kind of prescient about the notion of undoing a sort of a class system. The 1% getting their just desserts, I
guess. That's a great way to put it. Nice. So that was my time. So Jacob Gentry, director for Broadcast Signal Intrusion, premiering at South by Southwest. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Of course. Thank you, Dan.